Hello, everybody, and welcome to Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack, and today you can see I have some lovely guests ready for our Liverpool meta discussion. We've done these over the past couple of weeks, and I think they're really, really useful in terms of sort of looking towards the events and seeing how the meta is sort of shifting week by week. So yeah, I'm joined by Pedro and Tord. There's a lot of things going on Twitch right now. I'm joined by Pedro and Tord. Pedro, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then I'll let you hand over to Tord.
Hello guys, I'm Pedro. I'm from Spain. Compete playing Pokemon since like 2013, and I started my competitive season with the new era in 2016 with the UIC, and got pretty good results in my start. So I continue playing, and yep, definitely really happy with my results. Top 4 awards, international champion, regional champion, some day 2 placements. So yeah, 2 years without competing, and now hopefully we can compete again. Looks like after 2 years in Liverpool next weekend, so I'm kind of excited to play and to meet my friends again. Yeah.
Definitely. Tord.
Yo, I've been playing since I was 6. Uh, no, wait, yeah, since I was 6 years. My mom taught me, and yada yada yada. I started competing when I was like 11. I was 2006, and I've been playing ever since. Won a couple internets and stuff. Made a bunch of cool decks, and trying my best to play a lot of Pokemon and having a lot of fun with it. So that's me.
Excellent. So yeah, Liverpool is just round the corner. Very exciting stuff. It's been 2 years, like we said. I think the last time, at least us three all together, was in Malmo, which is over 2 years ago now, which is pretty crazy. Really excited to get back to tournaments. We've had two events now. We've had two regionals, one in Brisbane and one in Salt Lake City. I think it's fair to say Brisbane kind of had the results that a lot of people were expecting. Mew did incredibly well, ended up winning the tournament. Salt Lake City, not so much. No Mew's in top 8, I think, is the biggest elephant in the room, and the one we're going to address first. It had a great showing. Mew ended up being nearly 50% of day 2, so it still did very well, and I think it is a little bit naive of people to say Mew did badly in the tournament, because it was still the best points earning deck if you look at the amount of people that converted into day 2. But none in top 8 and only one or two in top 16, I don't think was the result that anyone was really expecting. Going into Salt Lake, I'm pretty sure everyone saw it as the best deck in format and the deck to beat. Tord, do you think that's still the case? Obviously, there was none that made it, but it's still such a good deck. People still need to respect it, right?
I mean, obviously, obviously, still have to respect me. It's not like you can play one tournament, and if there was no Mew there, that means that the deck is gone, right? I mean, I was streaming a little bit today. I was playing Rapid Strike with Shifa. I was like, "Hey, Mew is dead, right?" But that's not the case, you know. I mean, the deck the deck is still out there, and you will have to expect to face it, and that is not something you can take and loss to at all. You will have to beat like face a lot of them, and you will have to have a game plan if you want to play and do well at the event. Or you could be really lucky and dodge them all, you know. But I still expect the deck to be the most played deck at the event, and you also have to take in consideration that a lot of people actually prepare more than a week in advance. So people might already planned and pick their deck choice way before these regionals, right? It's not like they'll scrap their whole deck and all their effort in testing and preparing because this happened this week in that regionals. That's not how it works, right? Like people don't work like that,
Yeah.
and like so some do, right? People can be like frantically panicking, like, oh, what happened last weekend? But of course, a lot of people will keep their choice, right?
Yeah.
Like one top 8 regional won't affect that, right? And if you look at how much like variance and things it is, like in Pokemon and how many factors there are, I mean, I don't think it matters at all. It's like being very narrow-minded, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Pedro, would you say the same? Do you still think Mew is going to be the most popular deck day one going into Liverpool this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe with I definitely agree with Thor. Especially because Mew, for example, was not top 8, but like we said before, like a lot of placements in the day 2, like top 32 or top 64, were a lot of Mews. So the deck is still strong just to get points or just to try to win the event because it's really fast, it's consistent, so it's a pretty good choice. Um, maybe I expect a less Mews than I would expect after Brisbane versus probably, because now maybe people is more hype on Arceus or Gengar variants, or even Suicune. That was a really good show on the last this last weekend. But yeah, definitely, I guess Mew will still be the most popular deck in my opinion. Maybe in a pair with Arceus, I guess it's the two best decks in the format, right? Any Arceus variant in general.
Yeah, I think it's kind of being we can kind of see that Mew in general and then Arceus variants are definitely like the two pillars of the format right now. There's a couple of other decks here and there, but primarily it's Mew decks, it's Arceus decks, and then a couple of other things that don't really fall into either category. In general, just on Mew, because I don't actually want to talk about it too much today, because I feel like Mew is not completely figured out, but everyone knows a lot about Mew. It's the deck that everyone was discussing the most. So a couple of things I think are important to think about is just the Psychic build versus the triple double turbo build. I think though it looked like there was some people trying to factor or trying to like hone in on the fact that Natalie's List played just special energy and really tried to punish that with cards like Sydney. Do you feel there's I'll go to you, Pedro, first. Do you feel there's a better one for this weekend or in general, or do you just feel because I'm personally in the camp of I think double turbo is absolutely insane in the deck, so just being able to attack from nothing is really, really important. But like I say, it falls into a lot more. You can hate on it a lot easier. So I don't know whether Natalie doing well with that list kind of puts you off it, or whether you still think it's the way to play Mew.
I really like both versions, like with Double Turbo and with Basic Energies, more focused on like Psychic Loop stuff. I guess for Brisbane, it was pretty good that Natalie and their Creo list, it was pretty good because the meta of top 16, it was full of 2 and 3 price attackers. Literally no one price attackers, I guess only one. So in that meta, it's pretty good to just spam double turbos, spam bosses or escape ropes, and just take prizes. But if more one price attackers decks appears, maybe the version with psychics can actually try to do a little better because of the psychic loop stuff. So I actually like both versions. Still not sure what is the best one. So I guess if people want to play Mew, just try to play the version you like the most. But I guess it's depending on what do you face on the meta, if it's better double turbos or play some psychics, right?
Makes a lot of sense. Anything else to add to, or are you pretty much in the camp of both seem pretty good?
Yeah, I mean they are both good, right? But like again, it depends which attack you're using, right? Because if you're using Genesec's attack, -20 on 210, that's not a lot. Actually, it doesn't even matter because like your math is already awkward against Arceus and most 220 things anyway, so you need that like modifier regardless. And it even adds up to the V star regardless, so it doesn't matter. But when using Cycling Leap, -20 on a 70 attack, that is absolutely horrible. That's like the worst thing that can happen to your whole life, you know? It's like you suddenly don't kill Sobble, you don't kill Drizzle, you hit 80 with a tablet, you don't kill Baby Moltres, you don't kill Hoopa, you don't kill anything, man. I'm just like so sad whenever I go double turbo and I use Psychic Leap. I'm like, oh my goodness, just kill me already. Right? It's horrible. So it really depends on what matchup you're playing, right?
Yeah.
If you want to go Technoblast or if you want to go Psychic Leap, that's like where it differs, right? And if you don't have to like grind your way through all this one prize BS, then it's cool running double turbo. But if you have to do that, then you need like more psychic outs again.
Yeah.
Like obviously you can still like do it with only the fusion energies. You can play really well, right? But it's nice to have like some leeway. So honestly, I like kind of like a split between them because I don't think you will need more than one, maybe 2 double turbo a game, right?
Yeah.
That's like absolute top. But it's nice to have the options. So I like to have both options. So like I think probably like a split between them would be like the most reasonable thing to do. But
yeah. Makes sense.
I like it. Obviously differs, right? If you're playing against Arceus and stuff, then you rather want all your energies to be double turbos because those are just better when you never have to psychic leap, you know. So it's like that. It's not like something is better than the other. It depends, you know. It's more nuanced than that.
Yeah, makes sense for sure. So yeah, I feel like Mew. We didn't see the results we expected from Mew. One deck or one Pokemon in general that I think overperformed was Gengar overall, both the Houndoom variant and the Arceus variant. We were chatting before, and it makes sense as to why it did so well, because Gengar, on paper, has the best matchup against Mew if it can get into the game. Inherently, some of Gengar's issues have been with its consistency rather than its actual game plan. Its game plan against Mew is very solid. Arceus Gengar was actually the variant that ended up winning. And we actually saw the list today. I don't know whether you guys have seen Drew's video, but he did release his list today. Essentially, just trying to focus that Arceus package and Shell on being consistent, and then having a good subsidiary attacker for the Mew matchup. It was a deck that kind of a lot of people were surprised about. Pedro, do you think it's a real deck, or do you think it just did particularly well because no one was expecting it, or do you think this is actually one of the best ways to play Arceus now?
I think it was pretty good. As I said in my streaming before, if you pair a good player and a good deck or a good archetype, it's really likely that you have a good results, right? So it was Drew Kenneth, one of the best players in America, and Arceus, archetype, one of the best archetypes in the format. And he paired, in my opinion, with the best supporter, the best support Pokemon for Arceus, in my opinion, is Bibarel. Actually, I'm a big fan of Bibarel because Bibarel, I think, is the support Pokemon in Arceus that draws more cards in general during all the game. So you can set up better combos than, for example, Chinchino, that's a little slower in early game, or Inteleon, that is pretty good in mid and late. But for early, only being able to pick one card, sometimes against fast decks like Mew, or decks that won't KO you in turn 2, you probably need that draw until 5 with Bibarel. So he actually combined my two favorite engines with this Arceus with Bibarel, and he was like, all right, I have a bad time against Mew, I'm gonna just join the Gengar package. So it actually fit perfectly for a strategy. And also the collapse at the stadium count was pretty good, for example, in the finals, because completely destroyed Suicune. I guess he didn't want to touch against Suicune, he probably joined the collapse against Mew, but it finally worked against the Suicune final. So yeah, good deck, good archetype, in my opinion the best engine with Arceus with his Bibarel, and a counter against Mew. He has all the answers, so I think it's a pretty good deck. Yeah.
Makes sense. And do you think it will be popular in Liverpool tour? Do you think a lot of people will pick up this deck, especially now that we have the 60? Because I know it's only been released today. Do you think a lot of people will try it out, seeing that it's won a regional and seeing sort of it on paper has what looks to be a fairly good Mew matchup, which we've said looks to be very popular?
I mean, it would make sense. Yeah, like people can definitely pick it up. But I think, like, for meta calls in general, I don't think I'm the best person to ask. Like, I always feel like I'm really bad at predicting metas. I'm like usually in the total opposite of what's happening in the room. I'm like, if I think something is not seeing play, you can bet half the room is playing it. You know. So, honestly, now I can see it happen. I can see it not happen. I mean, like, figuring out what people think is really difficult for me, because like I think like different.
That's fair enough.
I wouldn't go the same direction often, but yeah, it is what it is, right? But they definitely is a strong deck, and I wouldn't be surprised if I have to face a couple of them at Liverpool.
It makes sense. Obviously, the Houndoom variant, kind of the more standard single strikey variant of Gengar, also did pretty well. It didn't do quite as well, but I think two made top 16. Top 8. I can't remember exactly, but yeah. Do you feel the Arceus build is better than the single strike build just because of the inherent consistency that Arceus and Bibarel bring toward, or do you feel there's still a place for the single strike build that looks to be a bit more inconsistent, but probably has an even stronger Mew matchup per se?
Like, it depends what you play against again, right? I mean, Gengar on its own hits pretty good numbers against both Mew and against Arceus on its own, because like you can attach a belt to it and do 280. That's perfect math against Arceus. You don't really need any extra modifiers again. If you play against some other random VMAX where you need more reach, then obviously you would much rather have a Gengar that can reach that number, right? Instead of having to two-shot it, then that will be weaker again. So like, it depends again what you're up against. But the two most popular decks would probably be something Arceus and something Mew, right? And that's probably also why it won the regional, because that you have good numbers against both those two variants, right?
For sure.
But it all depends like what you're up against, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. The other big Arceus deck sort of going into the weekend was Arceus Inteleon, not necessarily with Moltres, just sort of the straight Arceus Inteleon that looked to Sharon's Care loop, and try and sort of just be this big two-prize attacker that's just doing an efficient 180 or 200 damage every turn, and eventually that's just too much for other decks to handle. They don't have the damage to get through like big charmed Arceuses or anything like that, and eventually you just take 6 prizes before they can because you're healing a lot. The deck still did well. I'd say it probably performed as expected. There was a couple in top 8. There was a fair few in top 16 in general. This is sort of not playing the Moltres package. I think the biggest innovation or the biggest sort of reveal was 4 of the day 2 players all played that 1/1 Bibarel that you said you liked, Pedro, as well as the Sydney tech. You've said how you like Bibarel, but do you feel Sydney is good in the deck, Pedro? It was obviously used as a bit of one of these special energy and hate cards, as well as just getting rid of stadiums to be able to lock in a path. Do you think it's worth the space, or do you think now it's kind of been revealed, people will be more aware of it and it's not quite as strong anymore?
I don't like it a lot. I'm sorry for all my friends. Are really good top players that play Sydney in their list. But I guess it's that you can fit the space with a better card. But that's of course my opinion. Now, even with the surprise factor gone, that people will probably play around Sydney more than before. It was a really cool tech for sure. I guess it gave a lot of wins probably to Raul, Isaiah, and all the group. Um, when I tested, it wasn't that great. Actually, we saw round one, I guess, Raul Redding streaming, playing Sydney, the opponent 10 card hand for no effect. It was like, you could actually play maybe another support in the turn, right? But yeah, sometimes if you hit some crucial cards, it definitely changes for completely the matchup. So I don't like the card, but I guess it's pretty good in some scenarios that you can actually hit to discard the cards you actually need for game. I guess it's more important as you said, the package of Big Charm, healing, the path to the big stuff, the Marnie. So the Sydney is like a bonus, right? Because
Yeah.
I guess what Mew struggled a lot against the deck. I guess Isaiah Brunner said like he was like 5-0 or 6-0 against Mew players. It was just to have the Big Charm, the healing, the path to the peak, and all that stuff that Mew definitely struggles. And if you can hit Sydney for 1 or 2 energies, stuff like that, it will be perfect. But it's like a bonus. I will probably put another card, like a consistency card, instead of Sydney to try to have a better turn 1 or so. But yeah, that's my opinion about Sydney. I'm sorry for my friends, but I don't like it a lot. Yeah.
Makes sense. Obviously, the other kind of build of the deck was with this mini dark package, whether it's the big Moltres or just a couple of baby Moltres. A lot of people kind of thought that baby Moltres was one of the best Mew counters. It was a really, really strong deck going like before Brilliant Stars, sort of the just Inteleon Moltres kind of deck, whether it was playing Hoopers or Weezings or that kind of thing. But Arceus seems to kind of wrap it all together now. As a one, it can also kind of be just this one prize deck, right? It can be, it's not necessarily just an Arceus deck. Do you feel there's still a place for the sort of the both of these decks toward the non-Moltres version and the Moltres version? Do you think they're different enough that they can both kind of exist, or do you just feel the Moltres version is better because it has a better time against Mew or that kind of thing? Because obviously you have to put a lot of space. We have to take a lot of space to add all these dark type cards in, right?
I mean, you do. Wait, hold up. Do you think the baby Moltres, like straight version, is better than the one with Arceus against Mew?
I think a lot of people do, because I think it's Moltres is naturally seen as kind of a good counter to Mew. I think against a lot of more experienced players, they'd probably lose more games to like an early game path rather than the actual Moltres, because people know how to play against Moltres. But I think a lot of people may look at these two decks and naturally think the one with the dark package is more favoured against Mew than the one with the path package.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I can see that. I'm still like unsure. Are we talking about like Arceus just straight with Pat versus Arceus with the dark package, or are we talking about baby Moltres straight and baby Moltres with Arceus?
So in general, like the Arceus decks compared, so the one with just paths or the one with the dark stuff in, because both ended up seeing basically the same amount of day 2s and almost the same amount of like top 8s.
All right. They're still they're both fine, right? I still feel like Pat and Prey is the most common win condition against Mew. Because like Mew has a pretty good price trade, and you can use like one pricers and stuff. But like it all depends on how it's played again, right? If Mew sits there and donates the VMAX, then Baby Moltres has a pretty nice time, and it's not, you don't really need to do much to win the game. If they're feeding single pricers instead, then the price trade is a little bit different. So I think that matters a lot. But yeah, if your Pat sticks, you just beat me, right? So that works. But the dark thing can still like lose out in the price trade. So I like it. It all depends, right? But best case scenario, you manage to put the Mew player at like 3 prices when you play the Dark package, right? So you go first. You manage to donate them a single pricer. Then you go into Arceus that they want to try to kill, right? Without benching anything else, like a double pricer, so that you can go and have like potentially 3 turns of a window of opportunity with Vape Moltres. That should probably be like enough for you to win, right? But what often happens is that Mew like kills the Arceus first, right? Go down to 2 prices. You don't even set up that thing in the first place, and then the game plan doesn't really work because Mew is at 2 prices before you even attack properly. And then even if you have the Babe Moltres, it's not enough to like win any sort of price trade. So like it's all about tempo, right? And the early game, and like what's happening in the price trade,
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of like we mentioned. There's kind of there's the Mew decks, there's the Arceus decks. They're the kind of 2 pillars at the moment. The only other kind of notable Arceus decks that did particularly well. There was a couple of Arceus sort of Malamar VMAX decks that again looked to be Arceus with a Dark type attacker that really tried to counter Mew. And then there was also a couple of Arceus decks playing this Beedrill package, Rapid Strike Mustard and Single Strike Mustard and Beedrill, to try and again deal with. There's so many special energy going around right now, so just taking a KO on any Pokemon with special energy is really good. Pedro, do you feel either of those are still going to be popular? I think there was no sort of two or three of the same Beedrill deck, but there was Beedrill and I think 4 or 5 different Day 2 Arceus builds. It's definitely the best way to get Beedrill out because Arceus is just a double computer search, which is kind of the exact thing you need to use this crazy supporter and get your hand down to 0. But yeah, Malamar, VMAX, and Beedrill, do you think either of those are good counters to Mew, or do you think just the Gengar or the other decks that we've seen, or the other Arceus builds that we've seen are just better at dealing with Mew?
Yeah, with the hype of the Brisbane Australia list from Natalie, like full special energies, I guess Beedrill definitely gains more popularity. With the V-Star ability, you can actually set up the Master kind of easier. So it's a fast counter and kind of easy to set up against Mew. Like you give 1 price, but you actually take 3 price from nowhere, just if Mew has special energy. But yeah, I guess a Mew player with probably 2 basics, then it's gonna be more complicated. I guess between Malamar VMAX or Beedrill, I prefer Beedrill. And I guess, as you said, you need to play it with Arceus. I guess if you try to set up with Guidels and Stadiums, I don't think it's gonna work that great. I guess you need to definitely go Master into the Beedrill. And well, I didn't test a lot the Malamar VMAX stuff, so still undiscovered probably because not a lot of people played the deck or do well with the deck. But if Malamar VMAX set up properly, could be annoying for me. But for now, I prefer the Beedrill packet for sure with Arceus. It's just 2 or 3 techs that you can join, but it actually helps you to take the 3 prizes that actually matter for the game. I can see that being relevant. So I guess a really cool combo and definitely a potential deck that you can expect on Liverpool.
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of Arceus. One of the biggest decks outside of Arceus is Rapid Strike Malamar, and I know, Tord, you've been playing some Rapid Strike Malamar in some tournaments over the past couple of weeks. I know it's a deck that I think you seem to enjoy quite a lot. 4 ended up making Day 2, and 1 ended up finishing in 11th place. So clearly, it can perform in these big tournaments. Do you think it? First off, do you have a preference between Inteleon and Cincino? I know the answer, but I know some people may not know the answer. But 2, do you still think it's? Do you think it's up there in terms of a deck that isn't Mew or Arceus that can compete, or do you think it was just kind of a flash in the pan success?
No, I mean the deck is really good. I mean, it's by far the best single pricer deck in my opinion, at least. You have no damage cap, and the deck is really consistent in streaming attackers. And regardless of what's killed on the board every turn, you can replenish it pretty easily while still smashing one shots on VMAX back while replenishing the thing that died. It was like, it's kind of crazy, honestly. Like it flows really well. Like the whole deck can be built with Rapid Strike cards or cards that can find Rapid Strike cards. So like whatever you draw into, you will be able to like replenish your hand to the same thing. It's like, it's incredible consistent past turn 1 or 2, after that it's consistent. That's the issue, because it's not that consistent before that. You need either a Broly or a Keep Calling. Obviously I played the Inteleon version. I think that's the way to go. That one is a lot faster and can actually do something turn two. Which Cincino usually waits another turn or two before they can actually do that like big smash.
Yeah.
And you really want to keep calling to set up your field in the first place. Like that one extra Pokemon, it matters a lot. Like now, Cincino has Focal Family now as well, right? Mincino.
Yeah.
But like 2 is not the same as 3. It's one less, and it keeps snowballing through the whole game because the one less thing that was able to evolve and like fetch things in the early game. So no, the deck is really good, and it's just a little bit limited in place, like basically because like you want to take it out, right?
Yeah.
To like beat a couple of matchups, but every card you add that's not a Rapid Strike card is like a bomb, and you draw into the bomb and you lose, right? Like playing Minesweeper with your deck. You play the Ambition, you draw the boss, so you draw the Manaphy, and you're like, oh my god, not again, right? And then when you play these cards, you kind of have to run discard cards. You have to run Quick Ball and stuff, and that's also not a Rapid Strike card. So then that's like another bomb to like fish out your Manaphy, and like you're just starting to miss chaos, and you're like start really hating those cards, and you want to cut them, and then you're not flexible at all because if you don't run like balls at all, for example, right? Then it's really easy for your opponent to like bully you and go like single price, VMAX, and like, oof, that's a lot to go through, you know. If you don't have like any sort of option to like go around them, and if you don't play Manaphy, any sort of spread deck like Jolteon or any like Rapid Strike, which you've obviously seen a little bit of hype right now, just because it would smash the whole of top 8 because they were all dedicated Mew counters, right? And they will all be weak to fighting. So anything fighting would have been really good there.
Yeah.
Obviously. But like Rapid Strike would also beat up Malamar because you have G-Max Rapid Flow, and Jolteon would beat up Malamar if they don't have Manaphy. So, but you still don't want to play the card because it's not rapid. That's the point, right? So
Yeah.
like anything you add for matchups and mobility and flexibility is heavily punished, which makes it like, I don't know, it's kind of unfortunate to put it that way for Malamar, but it's a really good deck. It really is.
Makes sense. There's a lot, like you say, I do think it has proved itself to be the best pure one prize deck. There's a couple of these Arceus decks that look to like pretend to be a one prize deck or whatever, but for pure one prize decks, I think it is definitely the best out there for sure. Speaking of Manaphy, Jolteon managed to make its way into top 8. Pedro, do you feel Jolteon was kind of it was the best deck, was the second best deck before Brilliant Stars, right? It was the best deck to Marnie Path people, which improved your Mew win rate. It was very good at dealing with all of the other Inteleon decks because there was no bench protection. With Manaphy plus it only having 300 HP, I think a lot of people naturally were put off by playing Jolteon. But yeah, managed to get arguably 8th place this weekend, top 8. Technically, if you look at the results. One, do you think it's here to stay? Do you think it's as good as it was? Or do you think, again, it's just because people weren't really prepared for it? And two, do you think many decks will be playing a Manaphy of their own to deal with that, expecting maybe a few more? Along with kind of, as Tord mentioned, the Rapid Strike Urshi hype, because it, like you say, it would have absolutely smashed top 8. These decks are being talked about a bit more. So is Manaphy now worth the inclusion? Not just in, I guess, single prize decks like Malamar and stuff, but in general, just to stop these big sort of sniping decks.
I think Manaphy is still not worth it to put it in any deck, mainly because, yeah, Jolteon got a top 8. Urshifu literally is not playable because you lost to Mew, what is the most popular deck. So yeah, after Brisbane and Salt Lake City, one Jolteon in top 8, right, and none Urshifu, so I don't think it's super relevant to join one card only to beat two decks that almost disappears. Jolteon is good, but it's not that popular or that high popularity like Mew or Arceus. So better if I will play a deck, for example, and I have one slot free, instead of Manaphy, I will try to put a card to try to counter Mew or Arceus, than a card that only helps me against two decks that they are almost non-played. And even if you run it and you price it or the opponent just boss it early, you can even still lose to them. So if Jolteon or Urshifu will be like super popular, I will definitely join Manaphy, but I guess people going next regionals like Liverpool or Sao Paulo, you will definitely in theory, expect or face more Mews, Arceus, Gengars, even Malamar, stuff like that, than snipe decks, at least for now, in the metagame we have right now. So, of course, because for example, when I was testing Malamar, because it's one of my favorite decks for sure, I I even considered the deck actually because it's pretty good to play it. I only lost to Snipe. So it was like, as Thor said, if we join Manaphy, that's a card you don't want to actually draw because you maybe miss the crucial knockout for game, right? Because you draw a boss, or you draw a Manaphy, or you draw a Cynthia, and you are in the line. Like, oh, I lost because I draw the bomb, no? Right? Like Thor said. Um, so think in the meta right now it's not worth it to run Manaphy. I will probably join another card in the deck that you go to the next regional.
Makes sense. And then the final deck I want to talk about specifically before I kind of pass it over to you guys if there's anything else is Suicune Ludicolo. That managed to get second place kind of out of nowhere. Obviously, Finnegan Lynch is a fantastic player. He said it in one of his interviews last week. He has like well over 500 games with the deck. He's been playing it for a long, long time. I think it's definitely a deck that can reward someone who has experience and knows what the deck is capable of. But I think a lot of people kind of forgot about it. Do you think? I think it's likely to be more popular at Liverpool, I would say. But do you think it will do as well in Liverpool? Or do you think it's going to do? We're going to see a lot of it in day two, or do you think because maybe a lot of people will be picking it up for the first time and won't know the nuances of the deck and kind of the weird plays it can make? Because the deck only played like 5 supporters, and at most they draw 3 cards. So you have to know exactly what you're doing with the deck, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty sequence heavy to like play absolutely optimally, but it's not. Again, it's not super punishing for like if you do things in the wrong order, right? So, say like technically you're supposed to fleet footing to like look for what you want, right? So if you go like say you have a bucket, you have a level ball, quick ball, and you open Suicune, right? Like what's the sequence there? Do I draw the card first? Do I bucket first? Level ball first? Or how does this work, right?
Yeah.
And like it depends what you need. So like you said, it's the first turn. You would play the bucket first to like not draw into the water and shift from fleet footing, and then you hold the balls because you still want to hit the basic of it, right? But you don't increase your odds that much by actually playing the bucket first. But you should do it. But if you do things in the wrong order, you just use the fleet footing, you draw a random card. Yes, like you could draw a water is more likely, but it's very, very unlikely that playing the bucket first, like for those 2 cards, would actually matter.
Mm-hmm.
So then you would have messed up, but your chance of getting punished for it is not really that high again, right? Obviously, this will add up more and more.
Yeah.
Like for every time you use the ability, for every time you do anything, right? It will be the same thing with like Melanie having bolts in hand, like draw before you search, all of that, right? Sometimes you actually want to use the bolts first because your bench is full, or you don't need more Pokemon, and then you want to tin them before you draw. So I think that's probably like the hardest to get in. There's a sequencing thing here, but like even if you do that wrong, you're not normally getting that hard punished, and at least not immediately. But I think it will like show more and more if you run a whole tournament with it and you consistently like not doing it the right way.
Yeah.
It will like really like affect your score and how your games will actually pan out. So I think that's some nuances that can be like tricky to master. And I said it when I streamed this weekend as well. I think Daniel or Finn like was the best player they had on stream, and he was doing the absolute least mistakes of anyone up there. So like I felt like he kind of deserved to win that regional, like just purely out of how he played. But the matchup in the final was really rough. There was not really much he could do there, even with like really good sequencing and stuff. So
Yeah.
but it was a lot of fun to watch, and it shows that you can get rewarded for like proper sequencing as well. So it was nice to watch.
Makes sense. So yeah, that was basically all the big decks that made top 8 plus like multiple placements. Pedro, I'll hand over to you first. Are there any other decks that we haven't talked about that you think will maybe be particularly popular in Liverpool, or maybe just will not many people are playing at the moment but deserve a bit more spotlight?
Yeah, I think we will definitely see more Gengars and Suicunes than we maybe expected without the Select City. I guess people will actually start considering maybe Gengar or Suicune decks in general because did pretty well. They were on streaming, so people can actually watch the sequencing. As Thor said, the sequencing is really important, but the matchup was like kind of horrible because the collapsed stadiums, right? So collapsed just destroyed Suicune, but almost no one plays collapsed, so Suicune is definitely a really good pick. So if I expect more decks than I expected before this regional, it's definitely gonna be maybe more Gengars and maybe more Suicunes, especially because we need to know that a lot of people maybe don't have enough money to buy right now like a lot of Mews or a lot of Arceus because the decks are super expensive. And Suicune, for example, the most expensive card of the deck was Drizzles, right? So it's a really affordable deck for casual players, for example, or players that don't want to spend a lot of money. It's a pretty cheap deck and actually make finals and almost win $5,000 regional. So it's another good reason for a lot of players to actually play a deck like Suicune. It's cheap and pretty strong right now.
I think also it's a deck that, as you said, Tord, there's a lot of sequencing to it, so you learn a lot by playing the deck. You learn a lot about the fundamentals of Pokemon, but it's not overly punishing if you don't get those right. So for a new player, it could actually be a really good pickup just to try and learn a bit more about the game. It definitely has proved that it's a good deck. It's not like one of these decks that people say, "Oh, try it out, you learn a lot," but it's never really going to be. You're never really going to be able to win a regionals with it. We've seen this weekend it can do incredibly well. So yeah, it feels like a great deck to pick up, to be honest. And like you say, I know on Limitless they worked out it was like €45 or something, which is crazy. A second place regionals list was €45. That's pretty cheap, to be honest, compared to some of the decks we've had in the past. Yeah, over to your order. Is there any other decks that we haven't really spoken about today that you think may pop up in Liverpool this weekend, or do you think we've kind of seen everything outside of something really unknown that we couldn't even predict right now?
I think we talked about most of them. I still would be on the lookout for anything like fighting oriented, because there are a lot of decks like weak to fighting, but like the all good fighting options, like mainly in like Rapid Strike, is like so heavily checked by Mew that like you would be kind of crazy to bring it as well, right? Because like Mew will probably stomp you. But if you're looking for just like playing the matchup roulette, then I think fighting is probably where you want to be at, honestly, because that's literally spinning the wheel around. You're either smashing or you're getting smashed. There's no way around it, right? So I mean that could be fun if you want to take all the nerfs away. You're just gonna be like, I'm just gonna spin the wheel. All right, so
see what the opponent turns over turn one and just
yeah. What are you playing? Oh, Arceus. All right, buddy. Good luck. Oh, it's a me. All right, early lunch for me. All right.
I was gonna say, yeah. You have great games where you feel really dominant. Rapid Strike is just one of those, or Rapid Strike Urshifu is just one of those cards where the attacks are so strong. In the games it's doing well, it feels insane. It's one of the best attackers we've ever seen, I think, in the 2 120 snipes. But in the games where it's not going well, you can see it being just a bit too slow. But yeah, that makes sense. Finally, one final question. If Liverpool were tomorrow morning in 8 hours' time, Pedro, what would you be sleeving up? Would it be Mew, or would it be something Arceus that you mentioned at the start of the stream? You said you preferred Arceus in terms of how much you enjoy, what you like to play, what you enjoy. You leant towards Arceus, but we also said that Mew is the best points deck. So where would you be at if the tournament was tomorrow?
Right now I would play Arceus because I really like it. I would play Arceus Vivarel. I tested the deck a lot on streaming, so people can actually watch what I'm playing and my sequencing and stuff. My favorite version is the straight water because Melon is a pretty good card. But yeah, the main problem is Mew going second. I guess going first is fine, so I can maybe take the 50-50. Like, if I win the coin flip against Mew, I have a good chance to just triple boss Genesect. And if I go second, I need to pray my opponent just don't boss me turn 2. But maybe I just join a little dark package in the deck list to try to have a little better chance against Mew. So yeah, right now I will play Arceus Vivarel because I guess I have answers against everything. The deck is solid. I also have healing. I have 1 HQ options against everything that didn't evolve because you can just 220 with like choice band, 6-1 and stuff. So yeah, right now I'm sold on that. Just need to try to figure out the list. Yeah, that will be my pick if it will be tomorrow tournament.
Sounds good. Same to you, Tord. Would you be spinning matchup roulette and going sleeving up Rapid Strike Urshi, or would you be playing something else?
Most definitely, we're definitely spinning the wheel. What do you mean? Of course, I'm spinning the wheel. That sounds like fun, man. Most definitely. See me at Liverpool announcing rapid flows for double kills and movies on the bench. Watch me.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for joining me, guys. It was a really interesting discussion. I will leave links to all of your like Twitters and Twitches and all that stuff down in the description below. So make sure if anyone watching the video isn't checking out these guys' tweets and on Twitch and all that kind of stuff, make sure you do. And yeah, we will be back. Well, the next time I see you guys will probably be in Liverpool, which is very exciting. And yeah, this time next week we'll have all of these Liverpool results. So yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Best of luck to both of you in Liverpool. And I will see you in another video soon. Cheers, everyone.